This is KGW News at 4.
Take a look at this. After a foggy start to the day, things have really cleared out, and you can see tons of blue sky, lots of sunshine visible out at the Reserve Golf Course.
You know, Matt, we're getting used to this sunshine sticking around this week.
Yeah, it took you all 2 hours, didn't it?
Right, I know. 2 days of it and we're sold.
No, it's really, really good. Foggy start, but clear right now, and no fog in the forecast for tomorrow morning. So, yeah, it is clear and a million miles visibility, as the fly boys and girls like to say. The pilots, that is. All right, let's check out the view from Stoller Vineyard. Look at Mount Hood, just absolutely beaming. Some scattered low clouds in the foreground here, the remnants of the fog and low clouds we had in the valley this morning, but that's it. An absolutely stunning view of Oregon's highest peak. 50 degrees down at Stoller in Yamhill County. We'll take another view of some of our other Cascade Mountains. That's Mount St. Helens, of course. You can see Mount Rainier over there. This is indeed a 5-mountain day. 5-volcano day from Portland. You can see all 5 volcanoes that are visible from our fair city. These two, Mount Hood, of course, Mount Adams, and Mount Jefferson also. All right, 51 in Portland. Notice the east wind at 14. And it's just getting going. This is going to be a fairly strong east wind event for the gorge. It won't be raging too hard for the rest of western Oregon, but it is certainly going to be present. 50 in King City, 51 Portland, Vancouver's at 52. We've got 53s in Aurora and in McMinnville, so really warm until you get out near the gorge where it's a little bit cooler. Over the coast, also in the low 50s right now. So we're not seeing incredibly hot weather or warm weather for February, but warm enough. Temperatures at or perhaps slightly above average right now. Becoming windier tonight, though. That east wind is going to crank up tonight and peak later on, probably tomorrow morning or so. High clouds roll in on Thursday, but you know what? It stays dry and mild now through Saturday afternoon. We've extended the dry streak just a little bit longer, ladies, just because, Ashley, I know you'd be happy about that.
Yes, we will. Matt, thank you. Well, this kind of weather draws a lot of people up to the mountain, but this week we're reminded of the dangers that come with skiing and snowboarding. Unfortunately, 2 people have died over the past few days in the Heather Canyon area at Mount Hood Meadows. Morgan Romero is live for us at the ski area this afternoon, and Morgan, Heather Canyon is open today.
Yes, Ashley, that's right. It is still open and it has been for the past few days. Now, we do not know much about what happened to that snowboarder whose body was found yesterday because 1, he was skiing alone, and 2, no one saw what happened. But rescue crews found 47-year-old Tim Bowders in pretty much the same area in Heather Canyon where another snowboarder died Sunday. I'm up here right now with KGW photographer Ken McCormick, who got this video up at Heather Canyon today when he was skiing. Mount Hood Meadows General Manager Greg Pack says terrain up in Moon Bowl, that's what it's called, is for advanced skiers. It's really steep and it can be risky.
So he was in an area where we have some open water. In each of those open water areas, there's waterfalls back in there. And we rope off the entire thing leading up to it and the edges so you don't go in there. Unfortunately, he went underneath the rope line and accessed into that area. So I can't say whether it's intentional or not. Never ever cut a rope line. They're there for a reason. They're there to protect you from going into areas you shouldn't be in.
Bowders lives in California and he was in Oregon for work. Family reached out to the Hood River County Sheriff's Office yesterday when he didn't come home and said they talked to him last while he was at Meadows on Friday. Bowders' rental car was in the parking lot and security figured out where he was last from his lift ticket scans. Meadows Ski Patrol searched the ground, narrowing in on an area based on information they got over the weekend. Hood River County Sheriff's Deputy Joel Ives says they sent an aircraft up. Crews found his body underwater in a creek hole a little after 6 o'clock last night. This comes one day after Ryan Zeitner from Portland died while snowboarding in Moon Bowl. People heard him yell and saw him sliding down open terrain, but again, no one saw exactly what killed him.
Even though there are a lot of people that ski and snowboard up there regularly and are able to do so safely, it is still at its core a sport that carries some danger. And even when people are prepared, things can happen sometimes, falls and that kind of thing.
You should always ski or ride with another person and always stay within your ability. I asked Pack if there's anything Meadows can do to prevent this from happening. He said they try to educate people, and as far as terrain goes, they open and close access gates depending on conditions. Over the past few days, he says conditions up at Heather Canyon have been just fine. So as we mentioned earlier, they do not plan on closing access at this point.
All right, thanks so much, Morgan Romero, reporting for us. The Boy Scouts of America has filed for bankruptcy. The news comes amid lawsuits over sex abuse allegations spanning decades. The organization isn't broke, though. This is just a way for it to consolidate all the cases it faces from across the country, and that includes here in Oregon. Lindsay Nadrich spoke to the attorney of an Oregon man whose case is now on hold.
There's a history here in Oregon with Boy Scouts of America. And some say what's happening with the organization now can be traced back to a 2010 case in Portland, where a victim of abuse was awarded nearly $20 million, and a judge ordered the release of what's known as the perversion files. Those were documents kept by the Scouts that detailed decades of alleged abuse. Paul Monis, an attorney on that case, told me without those 12 people on the Portland, Oregon jury rendering that verdict, without Judge Whitmer allowing the order to use those perversion files in court, we would not be where we are today. The bankruptcy filing by Boy Scouts of America wasn't a surprise, but it's left some victims of abuse upset. Attorney Ashley Vaughn is representing an Oregon man who says he and his brothers were sexually abused by a Scout leader in the 1960s. They're all pictured here in the front row of the choir. He filed his case 2 years ago and was about to go to trial, but it's now on hold because of the bankruptcy proceedings.
Our client has been waiting 50 years for justice and a chance to have his day in court. And he feels like the rug has been pulled out from under his feet because we were supposed to start picking a jury on Friday. We've been gearing up for trial, and now everything kind of comes to a halt.
And because of the filing, he may never get a jury trial. Instead, all cases will likely go through a different adjudication process. He was too upset to do an interview, but released a statement saying in part, "How do I feel about the Boy Scouts of America filing for bankruptcy? Like I've been running 60 miles an hour and just hit a brick wall." It goes on to say, "I see BSA's bankruptcy as another betrayal. Instead of my story coming out and the bigger story of BSA's history of child molestation, the focus is going to be on BSA's assets and a bankruptcy plan. That's just more cover-up." This filing also means there's now a time limit on when victims can file claims.
By grouping everything together in this process, they're providing a hard deadline by when people have to bring claims, which could have a severe impact on people who haven't come forward yet.
Then there's the question of what this means for local Boy Scout chapters. The local councils are separate legal organizations that are financially independent, so they're continuing business as usual and are not part of the bankruptcy filing. Boy Scouts of America said they filed for bankruptcy to equitably compensate victims who were harmed during their time in scouting and to continue carrying out its mission for years to come.
Lindsay, thank you. Well, closing arguments in the deadly Max attack trial are set for tomorrow. It's the last step before jurors decide Jeremy Christian's fate. He's facing 12 charges, including 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 of attempted murder. He's accused of stabbing 3 men on a train in 2017. 2 of the men died. Christian's pleading not guilty using the insanity defense. A former prosecutor who is not tied to this case tells us that closing arguments could easily take most of the day tomorrow. The prosecution will go first, then the defense. After that, the prosecution takes the floor again for a rebuttal. If convicted, Christian could spend the rest of his life in prison.
A Portland Public Schools 3rd grade teacher is fighting to stay in the U.S. after an immigration judge ordered him to be deported. Just last month, our Kristen Severance had a chance to talk with not just the teacher, but the superintendent of schools who testified on that teacher's behalf. So how did this even come about?
So, Brittany, a lot of layers to this story, but basically this teacher, he teaches 3rd grade Spanish immersion at Bridger Elementary School, K through 8. And he came to the U.S. illegally. His parents brought him here when he was 8 years old. He went all through Portland Public Schools, went to college in Washington, and then was working as a teacher under DACA, so Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival status. Well, back in 2016, so before he became a teacher, he got a DUI, and that triggered immigration proceedings. Because things are so backed up, that immigration hearing didn't happen until January of 2020, so 4 years after that charge. And at the hearing, he had a lot of supporters, including the superintendent.
Yeah, Superintendent Guadalupe Guerrero was there. And what was that like?
So I asked, why were you there? Why were you fighting for this teacher? And he said, look, did I want to be a good employer? Yes. Did I feel like this teacher serves in a critical need area for the district? Yes, he said, but above all, he saw the impact that this teacher had on his students, and he wanted to, not just stand by him, but stand up for him.
Story that I think a lot of people can resonate with and is happening all around the country. And you're digging really deep into this, right?
Yes, this story has a lot of layers. These stories are not simple. There are a lot of moving parts to this story, and we get into all of them tonight at 6 o'clock on The Story with Dan Haggerty.
All right, looking forward to it. Thanks, Kristen.
You bet.
Brittany and Kristen, thank you. Well, police arrested a second person accused of breaking into a tow yard and running down an employee with a stolen truck. You may remember this surveillance video. Just want to warn you, this is tough to watch. Police say the suspects broke into 21st Century Towing in North Portland last week. When an employee showed up, the suspects rammed the gate with the truck and just knocked the guy to the ground. Yesterday, officers arrested Kenneth Jett after getting a tip from the public. Nicole Penagos-Clare was already in custody. The two of them face multiple charges. The employee who was taken to the hospital should be okay. Well, most of us want to recycle and do our part to help the planet, but you got to admit, knowing what you can and can't recycle can be a little bit of a pain. Well, tonight, Keely Chalmers takes us inside a Beaverton company that's in the midst of revolutionizing plastic recycling.
Right now, when you throw those plastics into your recycling bin, they end up in a processing facility where people have to sort which ones go where. But what if sorting plastics
So this is a plastic container
was as easy as this?
And so if we take our phone and we take a look at it, we see it pops up with a tap to discover. Now I could tell you how to recycle this container.
That's Bruce Davis, CEO of Digimarc, a Beaverton company that's on the verge of forever changing how plastics are recycled. And it's doing it with something we can't even see.
It's an invisible barcode.
That's right, an invisible barcode that covers this plastic packaging. For example, there are about 100 invisible barcodes on this detergent package.
By just looking at it.
A mobile app on your phone pointed anywhere at the package, and you're instructed how to recycle it. And it doesn't stop there. Those codes can also be embedded into containers like these.
These have been encoded for test in recycling facilities.
So when the item hits the recycling facility, sorting is made much easier. As the items move along the belt, software easily scans those barcodes and then automatically sends the plastic into the right spot.
By having Digimarc barcode in the plastic mold itself, we can instruct the system to send this one way and send that the other way.
Walmart is using the barcodes in some of its packaging, and Procter & Gamble just announced it will be using Digimarc technology in its products in Europe. So pretty soon, you might be scanning to help sort, too. In Beaverton, Keely Chalmers, KGW News.